Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 3DO Experience, the 3DO retrospective podcast where we talk about the 3DO company, the console, and everything in between. I am Bill, and this is Threk. How are you doing, Threk?
Oh, I'm doing just fine, Bill. How are you doing?
Well, aside from getting stranded at my work because my battery died in my car, I'm doing okay. It's
No,
th- this.
no one offered to drive you?
No, I had to go find one of my coworkers, one of the second shift guys, and see if he'd jump my battery, which he did. It was very nice of him.
Oh, that was good. That's good at least. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm still working on Infinite Wealth. I know, shocker, but I'm near the end, so I'm kind of tunnel visioning towards that at the moment. And this will be for Aaron from Superpod. I'm drinking a root beer, drinking a mug root beer. So that might be a hint at something me and him are doing in the future.
oh boy.
Good old mug.
Knowing
I like mug. Mug's good.
I haven't drank root beer in a long time, but I was always like a
Mm.
Barks kind of guy.
Barks is good, but what I like about all the root beers, we won't get too deep in this, but what I like is they all have something different about them. They're all kind of unique. Like you know what a root beer is, but they all have some variation which I appreciate. So it makes them more interesting to kind of try, you know.
Yeah, I just like Barks because it had caffeine. That was like really the big
Yeah,
thing.
and it was definitely had the most, no pun intended, the most bark out of all of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it has kind of that like Coca-Cola bite to it,
Mm.
which is funny because Coke didn't make them originally. They're originally their own thing, and then Coke bought them. I think it was like in the '90s or something. But
Yeah.
but we're not here to talk about carbonated beverages. We are here to talk about this fucker right here for the audio listeners. It's finally time to talk about Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. Bill has the original and the definitive edition. I have the definitive edition. So that'll probably be what we're mostly covering. We'll probably talk about the game itself, and then we'll go into detail about the remaster,
Yeah.
definitive edition, or whatever. And if you're watching this, you maybe have a hint of what I think about this. But if you're listening, stay tuned.
Yeah. I will preface before we start though. Everything in the original is in the definitive edition for the most part.
There's like
We'll get
one thing. There's like one major quote unquote thing that's missing, which I think is probably for the best that they did that. Any other minor things, I'm sure you'll point out, and we might even talk a little bit about that lost PC version as well.
so there are aspects of that lost PC version that are in this version. I will mention it when we get to it.
Okay.
Um, I will say before we start though, I really like this cover.
Oh, the like little anime cover.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not bad.
it's cute. Like it's more interesting than the reversible actual cover, which is it's funny, but at the same time, it's like a little
I kind of like it. I don't know why. Call me
uh
weird.
you're into John playing his plunger
It,
with
there,
his tie.
there is something about that picture that I find very, I don't know, I don't know. There's something about that picture that's like that's the one they chose to be the front.
Oh yeah,
You know.
and my favorite part too is the way I discovered how to remove the sensor. Just for a little a little sneak peek inside the original version I have, someone actually wrote the code right on the
Ah,
thing.
a true homie if there ever was one.
So for the longest time, I didn't know what that was, and I was just like, "What? What is this shit?" And then I was doing research. And I'm like, "Oh, that's the nude code."
Nude code in heavy quotes.
Yeah, we'll get into
Yeah.
that.
And
The-
then as we mentioned with the PC version, the cover for that is very plain. It looks like a fighting game. For those who haven't seen the PC cover of it, in fact, if you look at Plumbers Don't Wear Ties on Wikipedia, the cover you get is the PC
Mhm.
cover where it's like this weird picture of the two of them looking at each other, like it's like a fighting game or something. It's very strange.
And one last thing on the original version's manual, I don't have the big box because I don't have that kind of money to shell out. But I mean, this alone, just the jewel case was $200. But
Yeah.
I would like to share that inside the little printout, you get a nice pinup of Jeannie Basone. So
Oh, I wonder why that's not in the remaster.
I have a strong suspicion this is from her 1989 Playboy issue.
Oh yeah, she did do that. I forgot. Though I think well, we'll get into. I think she mentions it.
Yeah, because little spoiler for the definitive edition, Jeannie Basone was probably the most contributing of like anybody from this game with the remaster.
I would argue the only.
Yeah,
But
because
we'll
I
we'll
don't.
get to that.
Yeah, but yeah. So plumbers don't wear ties. This is quite possibly one of the most infamous games of all time.
And it's easily the most infamous 3DO game. Like I wouldn't say this game is what the 3DO is known for, but when you talk about the console now, you bring this game up. It's become part of its legacy,
Hmm.
which is very interesting because it originally was not made for the 3DO. It was
No.
originally made as a PC game, and it was made as a PC game, I believe, in 1993. And then
Yes.
2 years later, they decided to port it to the 3DO because it had the capability of doing like the stuff this game was doing, but I think it was more that the 3DO was very light with what they allowed on the console. Like I was thinking, why didn't they make this for the Sega CD at the time? And maybe the content is probably why. Maybe Sega would have went no.
I think it mostly had to do with the fact.
And for Sega with the Sonic, that's saying a lot.
Yeah, I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that like the 3DO literally, as long as you paid Trip Hawkins his licensing fee, he didn't give a fuck what you threw on
No.
this thing.
And Sega gave a fuck. And I think
Yeah.
they gave more of a fuck when the whole like Night Trap controversy happened, which was roughly around the time the original Plumbers came out. So it's a safe bet that Sega was maybe being like, maybe we don't need anything else to kind of like hurt our reputation right now. You know?
Yeah. Interestingly, too, this game predated the rating system kind of. The ESRB
Yeah.
existed, but 3DO for a long time used their own unique rating system, which
I don't know if any of my 3DO games have an ESRB rating. They might.
there are a few because I've seen them, but
Okay. I'm not sure if I have any. I'll look and let Bill know off camera.
Yeah, I believe that there are a few of the later ones did, but for the most part, the 3DO company used its own weird rating system.
Yeah,
Which,
Sega had one too.
And Sega's was basically just the ESRB with different letters.
Yeah, basically. And theirs predated the ESRB. In fact, according to Wikipedia, the ESRB was formed September 16th, 1994.
Yes.
Damn, I was alive. Like I was born within a couple weeks of the ESRB being formed. That's how old I am.
And it's funny because because this game was re-released, obviously, it didn't have a rating initially. It actually had to be rated, and it finally did get its M rating. So
Yeah, which we all knew it would get. Like I think if it was in motion, I don't think it would have gotten an AO. Like nothing about this game screams AO to me. Nothing.
no, honestly, the nudity on the back, that's kind of borderline because we'll get into it later, but technically not really in this version.
I mean, even if you take out the censor code, there is, but it's nothing that bad. Like it's
Yeah.
nothing that you wouldn't see in like a PG-13 movie.
Honestly, I think there's one specific scene that kind of is the reason why they gave this an M, because for the most part, this is borderline T in a lot of cases.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, I could look up the game on the ESRB's website, which actually one thing about the ESRB's website is they have nice detailed write-ups on every game they rate. And they give you like, oh, this is why kind of thing. So there you go. Let's see the game. Yeah, it gives you a little rating summary of why it is the way that it is. So
Yes.
which if I don't know how many people read that stuff, but it's there if you want it. So
It's nice that they put it. It's available. So
Yeah. The SRB is its own thing entirely.
yeah,
But yeah, we're
S-
finally here, guys.
yeah, the one that we've basically been hyping up since this show started.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess going into a little bit of the game's development history. This game was the sole production of United Pictures. That's Pictures spelled with an X. So cool. Um, you don't even see their logo in the 3DO version. It's only present in the PC original.
Yeah,
So
because for the 3DO version, the rights of it were bought by Kieran Entertainment, which
yes.
is like the weird logo you see at the start of the 3DO version. And
Uh,
then of
so
course and then of course a couple years later, many years later, Limited Run Games bought it from them, and so now Limited Run Games owns this game entirely.
yeah, Kieran Entertainment. There's their logo there.
Yeah, the weird like sheet metal thing, I don't know, weird design.
I did
Very
like.
very 90s. A lot of 90s logos had that like metallic sheet metal thing, like I remember Raw, WWF Raw back in the day had that kind of Metal Factory type of intro for a little bit, some with that, I don't know.
Yeah. Interestingly, like it's only present in the 3DO version because that was the only version Kieran published. But there's a whole introduction screen that plays like right before the opening scene with Jeannie Bisson, it basically introducing players to the game. But it's got like this really 90s like background music, and it just kind of like pops in the screen. It's like Kieran Entertainment.
Oh yeah, doesn't it start it's like spiraled and then it
Yeah,
unspirals itself? Yeah, like a video toaster effect.
yeah. There's a choice in this game that's pretty amusing where it's not in the definitive edition because Kieran's no longer involved. But one of the points, if you end up in one of the bad endings, one of the options is you can go back to one of the previous choices, but the other option is, hey, that Kieran Entertainment logo was pretty cool, and you can click on that and go right back to the title screen, and it's like, okay.
That is a very strange choice.
One interesting thing is when this kind of goes into like how Limited Run got the rights, but apparently in the behind the scenes stuff, when they were trying to track down the actual rights holders to this game, they looked up Kieran Entertainment's last known address, and apparently, when they sent out their letters like of request, the address that was listed was just some abandoned like plot of land on the side of a road that was literally
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah, if I remember, the CEO of Limited Run, he like cold emailed one of the dudes
I
who
think it
was
was Michael Anderson.
it's Michael Anderson himself. Yeah, and Anderson was like, I can't believe people actually know about this game. What? Like he was shocked, and that through a little bit of conversation, they worked it out, and then they bought it.
I'm really bummed that he's like not involved at all because he's honestly the person I'm most interested in
Yeah,
hearing from.
and it's surprising to me that he's not involved in this in any sort of major way. I mean, he was involved in like selling off the rights, and Limited Run probably got in contact with him to get any content that he still owned of the game, which he probably still had. So they had to get like the source code from somewhere, and it might have been from him for all we know. But they
Yeah.
don't. But again, one of my issues, they don't really go into that much detail about it.
No, they really don't. Like most of the information we learn, and I'll say like my favorite part of the entire definitive edition is the commentary track with Jeannie Basson because she basically gives most of the information that I learned during the my experience with the definitive edition.
Yeah. Yeah, we can go into that later, I
Um
guess. We should probably talk about the game itself.
yeah, so most people know this game famously from the Angry Video Game Nerd episode, which essentially popularized it in uh, the general known basically. Um, and the game itself, calling it a game is very generous at times, because it is a quote unquote full motion video game that only has like a little full motion video, like, and by that I mean just an opening cutscene. Um, the rest of it is all still images and in a slideshow manner, and it uses a lot of really 90s filters and like effects that date this game horrendously, in the best way possible, in my honest opinion. Um,
It's
but yeah,
very much it's very much a relic of the 90s. Like I forget who said this, but somebody said if you want to get a good idea of what like the style was or what was in vogue at the time for like a certain era, you don't look at the best stuff. You look at the worst stuff.
mm,
And like that's kind of what's going on, because the best stuff always transcends that and is just really good. But if you like with music, if you want to know what was going on, say in 1986, you don't look at the best albums from 86. You look at the worst albums. Like that's what was going
yeah,
on.
yeah, honestly. And the game is very weird about how it works. Like there is a score meter that literally means nothing in the grand scheme of things.
The whole game, it feels like it's a joke.
Considering the fuck up that they left in towards the end of the game, I think it kind of was.
But the main issue with the whole idea of it being a joke is there's no punchline. Like, what is the joke, right? Like it's very light, and because it's the best way I could describe this game, I was thinking about it the other day. Have you ever seen the movie Freddy Got Fingered?
I've heard of it. I've never watched it personally.
Okay. Folks, it's not a porno. It is the infamous Tom Green movie made in 2001, right? There's been a million YouTube videos about it. I won't go into too much detail, but basically, that movie is like this weird, like comedy, like gross out comedy that I think was trying to parody all the other gross out comedies at the time. But it feels like it kind of missed the mark. But later on, nowadays, it has a reputation of being almost like neo surrealist art or something. Like there's something kind of weirdly metaphorical about the whole thing, right? Um, there's a great Roger Ebert quote about this movie at the time, where I think he said, "The day may come where people will see this as a product of neo surrealism, but the day will never come when people see it as funny," which I think is a great quote. And it's a weird movie. And this game feels very similar to that. It's like this weird trying to be a joke, but in trying to be a joke, it becomes a piece of like surrealism. And that's what this game feels like, especially in the 90s. Surrealism was all the rage.
Hmm.
But Rich Evans from Red Letter Media coined this term, neo or commercial surrealism, where like if you look back in the 90s, there's a lot of like weird like camera angles and just trying to do weird shit just for the sake of being weird, but there's no artistry behind it, so it doesn't mean anything. And this
Yeah,
game kind of feels like that. Like it's just being weird because it's just like a pet project from some guy who like made a bunch of money and cashed out and just wanted to fuck around and just do whatever. Like props to him for getting it out, right? And judging it purely as a product, as a video game, it's absolutely terrible. But if you look at it beyond that, if we want to go into the whole video games or art conversation, this game kind of is art.
it, honestly, like when I was sharing around that I was playing this for the episode, I got some people being like, "Why are you torturing yourself like that?" I'm like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. This is great. Just to like, it's one of those things where like the more you stare at it, the more you're just like they legitimately thought this was good, and it's so
I don't know.
fun.
I don't know if they did. I
See,
genuinely don't think so.
from the way that they describe it, like they had a great time I mean, maybe not they didn't think it was good, but like they had a great time making it is a better way
Yes.
of phrasing that.
Yeah. And that comes off from like playing the game. Like if you observe the pictures, it's like, oh yeah, they're just fucking around, just having a fun time. It's not meant to be taken that seriously.
Yeah.
And it never like broaches that line of like trying to be something serious. It doesn't come off serious at all. But if it's trying to be funny or like, like kind of silly, like sure. But as I said before, like I don't know what the joke is. Like, is there something they're trying to say? Or is it just like, oh, or is it like totes low random, like 2010s YouTube humor, where it's like, oh, it's funny that I said this out of the blue, haha, you know? I'm not sure. And I think that's what fascinates most people about this game is that they still haven't been able to pin down what this really is, you know? Like people often compare this game to The Room, another movie reference, The Room, which is also a horrible film, but is amazing. It is fucking awesome. But we know the whole premise behind it, and that's Tommy Wiseau was trying to make a serious film. He just was completely incapable of doing it. So it comes out as like this comedic masterpiece.
Mm.
And Tommy has tried to say that he meant for it to be that way, which is totally not true. Especially when we've seen him try to do comedy like intentionally, and it just doesn't hit at all. But like this is so much more fascinating than The Room because even with this definitive edition, I still have questions.
Because so there are four major actors in this game. The main character, John, he is played by Edward J. Fasulo, but he's credited as Edward J. Forster in game. The most we know about him is that he was a model that they managed to get for the
And
game.
I imagine his like slight name change is something that happens a lot in Hollywood where say like their last name or their name is a little too ethnic. I'm using quotes on that. So they try to like, you know, anglicize their name a little bit so that it looks nicer, which is probably what he was doing.
Yeah, he was somewhat involved in the production of the definitive edition, not majorly because he doesn't appear in any of the behind the scenes.
A
But
damn shame. An
I know.
absolute travesty.
But he did, I guess. We'll get into it when we talk about the AI upscaling. But he had to provide photos for the AI to work properly, so he was at least contacted.
Yeah,
Um,
they had contact with him, you know, and they mention it in some of the bonus features in the remaster, like talking to him and all this other stuff. And they even mentioned that they were gonna bring him in to interview him.
yeah, because they when talking to Jeannie Besson, they mentioned that they're gonna do the same thing with Edward, but it just never happened. Unfortunately, he probably scheduling conflicts or just never hand out.
I wouldn't be surprised if sometime in the future we hear why. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. But speaking of Jeannie Besson, the arguably the most well-known person in this game, um, she was from the Glow Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. She was Hollywood.
Yep, she was one of the original she was one of the original wrestlers in Glow. She was there all 4 seasons. And I believe in the Glow TV show, I'd have to. It's been a while since I watched it because I loved that show, and I was so pissed when Netflix just took it down because they were about to film their final season for it, but then COVID happened, so they canceled the filming, and then they just went up and canceled the entire show in their last season, and that upset a lot of people, including myself, because I thought it was a fantastic show. It's the same writers as Orange is the New Black. Um, and yeah, and it was like setting itself. It was 4 seasons, and they're just going to do the fourth and end it, And we still haven't heard a thing since then, which really, really fucking. I don't think it'll ever get done again, but it really, really sucks.
Yeah.
And yeah, looking at the cast for that show, there's no directly named Hollywood character. There probably is a character here that, I mean, all of them are kind of inspired by the original Glow because that show happened roughly around the same time a documentary about the real Glow came out as well, and both are definitely recommended in my opinion. So
Yeah. Apparently, the way she ended up in this game is she did it as a favor to Michael Anderson, who was a frequent patron of the bar that she worked at, where she was an erotic dancer, I believe, at the time.
yeah, they did this thing called lingerie lunch,
Yeah,
which
that
is
was a thing.
really weird. Hollywood 90s, different time, man.
It's still prevalent, but not nearly as much as it was back then.
I wouldn't be surprised if that stuff still happens, but I'm a Midwest dude. You're like a Northeast dude, so our life experience doesn't really intersect with this.
No, the closest I've seen to that is when I was going to a concert at uh, a casino, and we were walking out, and that it was after midnight, so that's when the bars all became topless dancing. And I remember looking over and being like, "Oh, look at that!" and then just kept walking.
There is something about seeing, just topless boobs out in the open when you're not expecting it. You're like, whoa,
Well,
wait a
the,
minute,
the,
whoa, what the hell?
well, the
Because you're
worst
not
part is
expecting it. Like, holy shit.
the worst part was it was the reason I noticed was because I was with my mom and Alex, and my mom just looks over and goes, "Oh my," and just looks away, and I, of course, of course, I had to
That's
look at
such a
that point.
mom answer. That's such a mom answer.
But of course, I had to look, and I was just like, "Whoa, look at that!"
Be like, I'll be back in like 10 minutes.
I was so tired from the concert. But
Not anymore. Not anymore.
going back to the actors, though, the third major actor was the actor that played Thresher, the most controversial character,
Paul Bourseau?
Boker. Apparently,
Boker.
it's apparently pronounced Boker. He, I believe, has sadly passed on.
I wouldn't be surprised. According to Jean, he was like a lovely dude. Like they were friends and everything.
She's the one that got him the part because they had worked together in previous filming opportunities. Apparently, she jokes saying that he fit the role perfectly, and then she immediately apologized. She's like, I'm sorry, Paul. You're a very nice man."
I think she was saying like visually he has the look of like a weird sleazy boss, and he does.
Yeah,
he absolutely fits that part.
I think he's arguably out of the four performers, he nails his part the best. Like he very hams it up a lot.
It seems like he has the best acting chops because I know Jean had done acting, but as she would self-proclaim in the interview, she's more of like a stunt woman and still does like pro wrestling and all that kind of stuff. And
yeah, and what she had, what she had,
and Edward was a model, and models aren't really known for their acting experience.
No, apparently,
unless you're James Bond. So
apparently, according to Jeannie, like apparently Edward came off as he was apparently very nice as well. He came off as a little bit too much of a good boy though at times.
Yeah. I kind of see it because he doesn't do anything that crazy. It feels like Paul and Jean are doing the more kind of like out there stuff, and Edward, like the most we ever see is like if you put in the code, you could see his ass if you really want to see that.
Yeah.
But outside of that, there's nothing. But those just look like modeling shots. You know what I mean?
So, my favorite scene of Edward is the scene before the job interview where him and Jane first meet by the bike, and like they constantly cut to the scene of like Edward just standing there staring off into space, and he's got the doofiest look on his face, and I'm like, they used that scene multiple times.
I love that. Yeah, that's such a good shot. I love that shot. My favorite scene with him is when I think it's if he doesn't go after Jane or whatever when she is running out of the office, like Thresher will come up and just like romance him. And then they just like walk off into a parking lot holding hands. It's like, what the fuck? But that's bizarre. Very bizarre, but I like that. That was always funny to me.
One of my favorites is if you have John make the first move and then you have him pursue, like he'll give her flowers and like they'll exchange numbers. And then he jumps up in the air in this like hooray pose, which is amazing because
very Mario.
They took like 12 shots, but like in a couple of them, you can see a genie standing in the background, just staring at a wall. And she commented saying like, "I thought I was outside of the shot. So I'm just standing there."
Oh my God. It was such a ragtag thing because they said they would do it like on Sundays, which is how they got the office because
that's where
the manager was a friend of Michael Anderson, who is also, we forgot to mention, he's the narrator.
Yep.
So he's the guy in the suit, the flip flops, and the chicken hat. That's him.
Yeah. He's also Jane's dad.
That's true. Which they do a good job of making it not look like it would be him because you don't get that many shots of him. But when somebody pointed it out to me, I'm like, oh yeah, totally.
Well, the voice gives it away. Like once you notice, you're like, oh yeah, that's
him.
Yeah. You know, my favorite.
Get on the stick and make some babies for your poor old father.
Yeah, that whole line is so cringe in the best way possible. My favorite is if you look at the table, it's loaded with booze, but if you look really close, one of the bottles is Drano, and it's like what?
Yeah, like there's like Tabasco sauce on there as well. Like it's like they just grabbed all the bottles they just had, just threw them
Yeah.
on there. Yeah, it's pretty funny stuff. And then, oh yeah, the final actor is well, of the main cast is, what's her name? Uh, uh, she's the female in the karate suit who like
Oh, the
who
other.
beats the other narrator who shows up and then she dies.
See, she's so important to the plot that she's not even credited.
I thought she was.
Um, Let me check the bonus manual that came with the definitive edition. Maybe it includes
There
her.
you go. Yeah, sadly I don't have a physical, everybody.
Yeah, the
I
Xbox One is hard to find at the moment.
I haven't seen a copy of it anywhere.
I've only
So I don't
seen
know
it
who the
as
fuck bought it. Like nobody's bought it to scalp it either, which is fascinating.
she's not even So there's a few names in here. Oh, it's Thyra Metz.
Thyra Metz.
I
That's a
think
name. That's a fucking name.
that's my guess because I remember that name popping up over her in the ending credits that credited everybody.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it. Yeah, I'm
Um,
seeing every other copy, every other version of Plumbers on eBay except for the Xbox version.
I think it's either delayed or it's just impossible to find at the moment.
And that, you know what? That's true. It may not even be available. It may not be shipped yet. I don't know.
Going back to the game though, honestly the best way to describe this game, they mentioned a few times in like the behind the scenes stuff, but it's kind of a visual novel in a sense.
I feel like it's being very generous to call it that, but I don't have that much experience in the visual novel genre. I know you do, you freak. So, does it qualify? Do you think?
It's a very basic visual novel in a sense because it really is just you watch stuff happen and you make choices occasionally. It's a very about as bare bones of a visual novel as it gets. I think it's borderline.
Yeah, but if I were say to compare this to the only other visual novel that I've played, Doki Doki Literature Club, um, comparing these two games is completely apples and oranges. But with that game, there's definitely more going on, like visually and with like the storytelling and like the gameplay. Obviously, isn't there. I mean, it's kind of there because you have
See that?
that little mini game where you like
Yeah.
pick the words, but even
So
still,
the only reason Doki Doki is more interesting is because that game is literally programmed to fall apart, and it actually the whole point is you're supposed to look into the code, and the code does weird shit.
yeah, that game's fascinating from a completely different point of view, or from a completely
Yeah,
different way that this game is. But those are like the only two visual novels that I've played. So sorry, everybody. I haven't played Silent Hill 1, the GBA visual novel port.
yeah. What I find very interesting in Plumbers too is like the scenes. There are a lot of different scenes that you can discover throughout this game. Like to me, one
Yeah.
of the most bizarre is during the Jane and John first meeting. If you pick the make the meeting wait, it all of a sudden like cuts to these two complete like four different actors that have nothing to do with the plot. Like
Yeah, and I think in the bonus features they mentioned, I think they mentioned they were either just like random people or like I forget how they came out. Like I think one of them had some acting experience. They all might
one
have
of
just
them
been
was
like
a
friends of the crew or something like that. You know, they come off as like it almost comes off like a Tim and Eric sketch, you know, where
yeah.
they would just grab random people off the street and put them in their sketches, you know. It has that
So
feeling to it.
the only one that I know was apparently was a friend of Genie was Giovanni Carreras. He was the long haired gentleman that got kneed in the balls.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Other than that, though, the rest of them are just like there's like the nerdy guy with like the pocket knife that tries to
Yeah.
stab the girl in the bra at one point.
Yeah, I remember
Um,
him.
it's crazy because that whole thing happens and then it immediately just like goes back to like pick the different ending. You fucked up, bud. And it's like,
It,
okay.
yeah, it's just a random tangent for completely no reason.
Yeah, it's literally just like the whole no, you have to pick one of the options of them meeting. You can't just not have them meet.
Or at least
Um,
I think if they didn't want them to meet, they could have chose something much more interesting to happen. But
yeah. My favorite too is when you pick a wrong answer, which I'm pretty sure they're all wrong in some way or another.
I
The
don't think you can finish this game with a positive score. I think
no,
it's impossible.
I'm pretty sure it's designed to go down no matter what.
Yeah.
Um, but whenever you pick a wrong answer, it cuts to the narrator who's played by Michael Anderson, and he is like constantly in more and more deranged outfits. Like, well, I mean, first off, his outfit is amazing because it's a striped suit with like a golden bow tie and flip flops.
Yeah, and it's like purple as
Yeah,
well, and he has like the hat, like the trucker hat, and the sunglasses. And I think the first time you see him, he's on that bench hanging out with that statue of Ben
with,
Franklin,
with a statue. Yeah. Um,
Of all people, which is more fitting than it should be. You know, if you've read into his adventures.
apparently those shots of him standing in front of that weird like business that's actually the bar that he met Jeannie in.
That makes sense. I could see that.
Um,
And according to Jeannie, a lot of the locations were ones that like she picked, mainly for like the chase sequence.
yeah. Well, I love the chase sequence because it starts off like kind of intimidating, and then they just are fucking around at these different sets the entire time. Like
Oh
they
yeah,
completely
it's so good. Like they do the banana peel. There's a part where like a phone rings and they're like, "Oh, it's for John," and then like they're still doing the chase and he's just next, just like on his phone, like,
yeah.
which is funny.
Me-
I know I held it upside down. Don't remind me.
Meanwhile, Paul's just running around with his like knife or
His
pen,
pen.
scissors.
It's a
Yeah,
pen.
yeah, pen. Yeah.
Just
Um,
trying to stab her because she only like half took her clothes off.
Yeah, I'm assuming she didn't want to run around in Los Angeles with, well, actually, no, in some scenes she does have the bra off. It's weird. Um,
Like in the office building, she's half, right? Just the bra and the skirt. And then when it cuts to her outside, she has the blouse back on or the little jacket. And then when they do the chase sequence in full, she takes it off again.
yeah, I think James Rolfe like mentioned like he was baffled by that.
Yeah.
He's like, all right,
I think it was they probably filmed all that on different days. That would be my
true.
guess.
Um, I find it interesting. The filters are still what gets me the most, like the whole negative filter and like the weird shit.
Yeah, and it's got and like the cutout of the panda and the car,
Yeah.
like there's like a random band playing during like a race, you know,
Oh yeah, those pictures are.
like was that your favorite part, Bill? The racing stuff? 'Cause I know you're a racing guy.
I was interested in what race that was because that was definitely from some like local Winston racing series.
It was
Um,
aren't they stock cars? Like the filter is so extreme that in the original version it's hard to fucking tell, but I think those are just stock cars.
they look like late models. It looks like one of the very like kind of like the local preliminary series that like you eventually would like get picked up by one of the touring series, and then you'd eventually get to the main series kind of things. Um, it looked like they were ripped straight from one of those. I love the shots of the crowd because I guarantee you those shots were taken. They were either found online or they were taken without consent, which a lot of shots in this. There was no permits, as we learned.
Yeah, no shocker, no permits. Like the random pictures that Jeannie's taking with people, like when she's just like her arm around that old dude with the ice cream and everything, like it almost comes off as like vacation photos at certain points, you know? Like them just like fucking around basically.
One thing I find interesting is the actress that plays John's mother, like the most horrifying part of the game. No
or
offense
no,
to the lady.
no, the worst picture is that girl that his mom wants her to
Oh,
marry, Amy.
Amy, that poor girl
And
was.
so I feel so bad for her, you know. But like the worst is the picture of her like smiling, and then they do the inverse on the camera,
Yeah,
like with
that
the
was
colors. It's fucking terrifying. Like that is some scary shit, you
the
know. And
worst
that's
part. Is
fucked
like
up. And I don't think they ever really mention her Like, I don't
No,
think you know her name or anything about her.
her name is the actress. We have no idea. Apparently, the character's name was Amy.
Yeah, that's all we
Um,
know.
what I feel bad is like looking at the girl. Like realistically, they just framed her really bad. She really wasn't that unattractive.
No, no, it's just she wasn't like conventionally or like compared to Genie or whatever. But that's a very unfair comparison, I think.
I mean, for the '90s, that was definitely not what was in vogue. But nowadays, that's pretty standard. Like you'll see girls that look like that all the time.
Yeah, and it's not that big a deal, you know.
I just felt
Yeah.
bad. I was like, wow, that like because in James Rolfe's review, he doesn't even show that image. Like, so when I
No, he
played,
doesn't even mention that whole
no,
Amy thing at all. So when I played it myself for the first time, which as some of you may remember, back when YouTube had annotations, like you could make a little border and click on things to go to different videos. Somebody had structured it so that you could play Plumbers Don't Wear Ties on YouTube. And that's how I played it for the first time, actually. So that's where I learned a lot of things about the game. And yeah, like random stuff like that was just left out of his video. So like even though his video gives you like a rough idea, you're better off just playing the game for yourself.
Hmm.
But now, obviously, we can because it is now available on all the modern platforms. I'm pretty sure it's on Steam too.
I believe so. I'll have to double check on that. But another what I was getting at though with John's mother is one thing I found really interesting. The actress that played the mother was just like a photo actress. The voiceover was a completely different woman.
That makes sense.
Which I figured out because that woman appears in the game later as the woman that kidnaps Thresher at the end of the game.
Oh yeah. Oh
Because
yeah. She's
I
great.
I heard the voice and I was like, wait, that was John's mom, but that's not the same woman. And then I looked into it like, oh, it's a different actress that played John's mom, but they used her voice. It was weird.
That is very strange. Yeah.
We should probably mention the actor, not the actor, the narrator beef because like there's a point in this game where the second female narrator shows up, and apparently that's her gig. She's a narration hijacker. Don't
Yeah,
think too
yeah.
hard. Don't think about that too hard.
Yeah, she's like what wanted in like a bunch of states for doing this crap.
Yeah, she shows up and then basically beats up the narrator, and then he goes away for a little bit. And then he eventually, well, she reads over your script, and like I love when she reads your script because she's constantly like, "Huh? Oh, that's how did you?" She's like, "This is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. What
Were you,
choices are these?"
were you raised in a barn?
Yeah, it's just insulting you, which I'm pretty sure she does regardless of choices.
Yeah, it's so fucking stupid.
But eventually the original narrator returns, and he just like shoots her up basically with this really
He literally murders her.
yeah, with this really shitty MS Paint like bullet like graphic, which spoiler warning, limited run games removed from the
I'm not sure why. Maybe they couldn't recreate it in the upscaling. I don't know.
yeah,
But I think they keep the X's over her eyes.
they do. They do
Yeah,
keep that.
which that's funny.
And then the original narrator returns for the rest of it. It's like one giant big lipped alligator moment. It's just like it happens and then you never get acknowledged again.
I have not heard big lipped alligator moment in years.
I mean, that's the best way to explain it, honestly.
Yeah. Fuck. It's crazy.
I guess the last thing to bring up before we get into some of the more technicals is the famous fucked up line that they just left in the script.
Yeah, which suggests to me, like, because in the behind the scenes stuff, they're not clear on it. I don't think anybody's clear on it if they actually did filming, like they wanted this to be a full motion game, but due to limitations in say the hardware or the programming or whatever, they had to resort to using still images and then doing the voiceovers later. Right. So with that outtake, it sounds like they were, they could have been potentially recording it like as like a video or whatever, but also it could have been audio. I'm not sure because like you ask Jean and Jean's kind of like her memory's a little fuzzy. You get the sense her memory about this whole thing is kind of fuzzy because she probably just doesn't think about it that much, which I can't say I blame her on. But the details seem to be like there are parts that point to like, oh, they probably did film, but then there are other parts that's like, well, they didn't at all, or it's very confusing. And the outtake is kind of part of that, where it's like, was this meant to be filmed, or like, what's the whole deal, man? So many questions.
Yeah, my theory is that Michael Anderson just didn't really know what the fuck he was doing.
I think he just found it really funny. And
Well, I mean,
and the joke isn't that funny. Like he just says, "I've been searching for me, oh, for you."
yeah,
And then
and then they
they
just
say,
start laughing.
"Yeah," he's like Freudian slip. Like
That was
that's not a fucking Freudian slip.
no, that was Michael Boker says that. He's like Freudian slip, perhaps.
And it's like that's not what a Freudian slip is.
No, but you can hear
Fuck.
Michael Anderson in the background going, "I'm gonna leave that in the script."
Yeah, he's like, "I'm gonna leave that in." It's like it's not that funny.
I do like how they took pictures of them laughing though, just for the sake of that, which was a little amusing. Like especially
Yeah.
the picture of John just like staring off into space, like, huh?
Especially when you can tell that like a lot of the photos are they definitely were in motion.
Oh
Like
yeah,
some of the punches and some of the movement, like you can kind of fill the blanks in yourself. So again, it's like, was it meant to be filmed, and was the stills just done as like a backup? I have no fucking idea. And the definitive edition doesn't really do a good job of explaining that.
no. Another thing too that I found amusing was at the end of the game, you get the choice. You can either get the Hollywood ending or the non-Hollywood ending.
Which is she turns into a nun.
Yeah, the Hollywood ending
Me,
though is
a nun? Huh!
yeah.
There's a lot of good quotable lines in this.
Honestly, yeah. My favorite though is the ending where she's like, "So what do you do?" And he's like, "I'm a plumber." She's like, "Nah, no, no, plumbers don't wear ties." And I'm like, "She said the line."
And he's wearing that dumb fucking tie the whole time.
Well, because his
Like,
mom wanted him to.
but like, never mind.
That's like the one time it's mentioned is like at the beginning of the game where the mom's like, "Come on, wear the tie. You'll look nice." And he's like, "Mom, plumbers don't wear ties." And she's like, "Wear it anyways."
Yeah, and it's like he just has like the white shirt on and it like tucked into the jeans, and it's like
And he's ripped
nothing,
as fuck, which
like
is
as
hilarious.
fucked. Like he's almost, dare I say it, I think he's like gay buff, you know?
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think you know what I mean by that. Which is kind of fitting because if you look at his IMDb page, his only other credit is like for some weird movie that I think has like some gay implications. I'm not saying he's gay or not. I have no idea. I don't want to
John, are you
insinuate.
gay? Are you gay, John?
His mom asked him, but
I know that whole line
I
is
don't.
so cringe.
Yeah,
That's
but like
great.
all that stuff points to me. I'm like that Edward dude. He might be.
We don't know.
He might.
Apparently,
I have no idea if he happens to see this. I'm not insinuating. I don't fucking care. It's just vibes. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Please let me know.
yeah. Um, yeah, but other than that, no, I guess getting into so other than that, that's about it for the game.
It's a bunch of still images and a bunch of dumb filters pieced together with a patchy ass script and some real cornball acting that somehow became this weird cult phenomenon because it's such a fucking weird idea for a video game that like it almost feels like somebody would make this now as like a parody
y-
of bad games, but like no, this was made essentially to be a pet project for some random guy, and it was so fucking surreal and almost like kind of Andy Warhol-esque that it just became I think it was destined to have the legacy that it has,
yes,
and they weren't making this to be anything more than that at all. And you can tell like they're not doing it. They're not trying to like make high art or anything.
as Jeannie Besson said, they got paid, and that's all that mattered.
Yeah, and they moved on,
And she
which
said like she was not uncomfortable at all during the production. Like everyone was, I won't say professional, but everyone was like super nice. There was no like weirdness on the set.
yeah, and like even for the 90s, a lot of the stuff that's a lot of the more kind of risque photos of her, to me, again, I mean, I lived through most of the 90s, but I was a baby. So the vibe I get is they didn't put her in that many suggestive situations, like maybe a couple, but nothing that crazy, you know?
I
And it
think
was
she
like,
said the only scene that made her uncomfortable was the shower scene.
yeah, which is fair. Cause like even the weird stuff with Thresher in the office, it's like you can tell she's in total control. You know what I mean? They're not making her the vulnerable person in that situation,
The image of her
which
riding
probably
on
helps.
his the image of
On
her
his
riding
back
on his
is
back.
amazing. It's amazing. That is an awesome photo. You
Well, that's
know,
my favorite joke in the AVGN episode is like when it cuts to the scene of her in like the lingerie with like the handcuffs and the whip, and James Rolfe's just damn, like
he's like, "What the fuck am I watching?
yeah, that whole scene.
What kind of
It's like
fucked up game is
game
this?"
is
I think that's what
this?
he says. Yeah, what kind of
Yep.
fucked up game is this?
I just like how it's like where did she get the handcuffs and the whip? They just appear out of nowhere.
Yeah, they were in her purse.
Yes.
She always has them. She's always ready.
Also, another thing we missed is the scene where it shows her driving to work. Like she's like brushing her teeth in the car, like eating her
Yep.
breakfast
Yeah.
after she brushed her teeth. She,
Hey, we've
she,
all done that. We've all
I know.
brushed our teeth, and then we're like, "Oh, I should have ate first. Fuck."
Yeah. She's shaving her leg at one point. Like it's like the most bizarre. Also, my favorite part is she mentions like that was her actual car, but then the car
Yeah.
in the parking lot scene was not her car. And she's like,
It's
I don't
just
know whose car that
yes,
was.
no idea. Yeah. Yeah. And we've all known people and have done stuff in cars. It's like, yeah, we shouldn't be doing this, but we're doing it anyways. You know, the whole lipstick or whatever. You know, when I'm
Yeah.
doing my face on the way to my job. You know.
Yeah. And then the other
I paint this beard on every day. You may not know that.
my other favorite too was the motorcycle, like John's little scooter that
Plumber on a bike.
Plumber on a bike.
I love that. And it's like, okay, so with that thing, okay, that whole fucking thing where it's like plumber on a bike, it implies he's an independent contractor, right? But he's like, oh, but I gotta, get up and get to work or whatever. And it's like what, like for your first job? Or like, are you just like a dude who like works for like an independent contractor, but he like reports to a business or whatever, and then he can just like forgo his whole day because he just happened to meet some random girl that he fell in love with without really talking to her, whatever,
Oh, yeah.
right? That whole part was fucking confusing to me because I'm like, if he's an independent contractor and he missed his first job because of this, like that dude, that's not a good look, man.
No.
Like unless he takes her, he's like, here, let me show you what I do.
Yeah. You see, I am a plumber.
And he just like fixes some dude's sink, and she just stands there like, she's like, oh, I left my car at that parking lot. We gotta go back and get that at some
Yeah.
point.
the whole thing is bizarre. Like their whole relationship is like the textbook example of strangled by the red string, as they say on TV tropes.
Yeah,
Where it's like they just
love it first sight as well.
Yeah, with zero development at all.
Yeah, man, he'd love to do her plumbing.
That line is so bad but hilarious at the same time.
I mean, you knew they had to do that. They had to. It made too much sense.
I'd like to do her plumbing. It's like the way he said it is like what?
And then it just stops uncomfortably for a minute. It's like, are they gonna say anything? Or like, what's going on here? Like the whole thing is a complete mess, but much like The Room, or even Freddy Got Fingered to a certain extent, it's so fucking weird and crazy that the only way to experience it is to experience it for yourself. You know, it's so easy to like look up other people's opinions online and make them your own. I think we've all done that at least once. But this, you just have to get it, man. You know, and plus to see everything the main game offers is like what, an hour and a half tops.
Depending on how much you want to like go through every ending, which I will give
We'll get multiple, how many endings are like 2 or 3 or probably more than that?
So I will say one thing that limited run games did well was they gave that nice flow chart that shows you all the different routes and how the game works.
I hate that flow chart.
No, not a fan.
The only reason I don't like it is because navigating it fucking sucks.
Well, yeah, we'll get into the menus.
That's
later.
what I don't like. Like having the flow chart is nice, but one of the many dumb things Limited Run did with this remaster, one of the many things, High Limited Run, is making that flow chart. Like, I'm trying to like get to these scenes, and it's like, oh, I can't go down. I have to go right and then
Yeah,
up and then diagonal, and then I'm there. I'm like, why? What does it matter?
we'll get
What
into
the fuck?
we'll get into the controls later.
Yeah, this
Because
was
my God,
this remaster was done by like, I think it was essentially done by two guys, or at least it's implied it was done by two guys, and we meet the two guys.
yeah, yeah, one of them does the commentary with Genie, and he's very he compliments her every 5 minutes, going, you still look pretty good. And it's like, dude,
It's like,
like,
bro, I think he's just trying to be nice,
he sounded very
Yeah,
awkward the whole time.
yeah.
It's just funny to me.
Everybody who works at Limited Run is so awkward. It's
I know.
ridiculous.
Um,
Unless you're MVG, Modern Vintage Gamer, who I think he still
yeah,
works with them. He made the Carbon engine, which is basically why they've gotten a lot of these like other old game collections running and everything. I love MVG. He has a YouTube channel. He goes really in depth on like homebrew and game engines and all that stuff, like that side of gaming, and it is fascinating. He does a great job. Shouts out to MVG.
I will say, like, I have issues with how they handled the remaster, but I will say,
Oh yeah, this product is shoddy at best.
yeah, I will say though, I do think the two guys that made it seem very nice, and they did seem to care for
Oh
what
yeah,
they did.
there was effort put in, but I think the issue for me just comes from like a lack of quality control, because
Yeah,
a lot of issues, there's a lot of little issues with this remaster that it just doesn't make any sense. Like the main game, perfectly fine for the most part. I don't know if you had this issue, but for me, like I set it to no borders, keep, get rid of like the little menu and just experience the game, right?
yeah.
Whenever I would make a choice, it would give me a border, just a random border, and then the menu would pop back up.
So
Which
I never got the border, but I did get the menu popping up all the time.
Okay, which that's an easy, just push a button, it's gone.
Yeah.
Whatever. But to get rid of the border, I would have to go into the pause menu and get rid of it. But it just kept happening. So I was just like, fuck it, and just kept it.
Yeah, the programming in this game is suspect in a
You
lot
can
of
tell
ways.
you can tell one guy did the programming.
Yeah. Before we get fully into the definitive edition, though, I did want to just touch on the differences between the PC version and the 3DO version.
Yes, the
Um,
long lost PC version, which one of the videos on here on this definitive edition for some reason is like a YouTube video that is like a detailed history of the game and its release and everything, and it mentions the PC version. Like,
mm,
the only place really enough, that YouTube video I think is a little bit more in depth than some of the interviews for this, or
yeah.
just for this, but like he tracked down some dude tracked down the original PC version, like tried to find a copy. There was one copy they found in some random ass library, and then he grabbed it, ripped the files, and so if you go online, type in Plumbers Don't Wear Ties like PC version, the lost PC version, and I think it's on Internet Archive, archive.org, you can find it and
Mm,
download it, and you're ready to go. In fact, when you download it, there's like a README file, and I recommend pulling that up, so it'll just tell you like, oh, do like click this and that, and you're good to go. So I'd recommend it because you get to see a somehow like less complete version of it. Like it's still the same game, but the menus are completely different.
so
The intro
it's
doesn't exist.
yeah, the full motion video with the Genie Bassan, that's completely not in the PC original.
That was
Um,
made for the 3DO version specifically.
yes.
Which answers one question I had. Why is there a video at the start, but the rest of it isn't? And I
Yep.
guess part of Kieran wanting to do this for the 3DO was like, oh, we can actually do video. So let's get Jeannie back in, do a short little video with her, which it lines up perfectly.
Mm,
But if you notice her hairstyle in the video is a little different than in the still images.
yes.
It's not complete obvious, but it's a little different. And I will say for this, the definitive edition, they do like a completely new intro with her,
Yeah.
which is great. It's like it's completely tongue in cheek, and it's funny. It's funny.
Well,
I love how she's like kind of embraced this and is just like leaning into the joke.
yeah.
I like
There,
that.
Like my favorite scene is like they re-emulated the whole zooming in on her boobs again, and she's like, "Hey, we're not doing this shit again. This ain't
This
the
ain't the
'90s."
90s, yeah. And they have like the real bad like video distorted effects like
Yeah,
put in there. She punches the camera, that whole stuff.
yeah.
I like that. I thought that was done really well.
The fact that she contributed so much to this is honestly my favorite part of it.
Yeah, she spray tanned to hell though.
Yeah, I mean,
I
eh.
I don't mean that as an insult. It's just kind of like, how some people are, whatever.
One thing I did love though in the commentary was when they were going over the original version of that scene. The whole time she's commenting like, "What the? Oh, I guess my shirt's gone now." And then the point where it zooms in on her boob, she's like, "What the
She's like,
hell's
"What?
going on
Whoa, whoa,
here?"
yeah." Clearly she wasn't in on it. She
No,
just like she showed up, did the whole bit. She probably completely blacked that out. I wouldn't be
probably,
surprised. Yeah.
honestly. Um,
I,
going back
I, I
though,
I imagine a lot of women in show business black out certain parts of their career.
yeah. Going back to it though, like so the PC original A doesn't have that opening scene. It has extra images that aren't in the 3DO version,
That is
uh,
true. Yes.
but they are in the definitive. And when I saw them in definitive, I was like, "What the fuck are these?" And they're these weird drawn images of like computers, and they look really surreal and like bizarre.
Yeah. And I don't think we get any information on where those came from, why they're there. We get nothing.
Also, the United Pictures logo, which has that like weird clown looking guy on the cover.
Yeah, yeah, the clown fuck. Yeah, yeah,
Like
Krusty.
you look up United Pictures, believe it or not, you're not going to find much about this company. Um,
Gee. Oh yeah.
that's about all I could find is that picture.
Yeah. It's so weird. The PC version is fascinating in its
Yeah,
own way.
there is some slightly different music tracks too.
Yes.
Um, there's also different music tracks in the definitive edition. It's weird how like the 3DO soundtrack was
And
not
it
fully brought over.
and is it just me or did this definitive edition add a photo? Like for
That
this?
that dog photo I don't remember.
Cuz that the photo I'm talking about of the close up of the dog, right?
Yeah.
I remember I looked at it, I stared at it, and I was like, "This has to be a brand new photo. It has to
So
be." Like
in
the setup of the shots are completely different. There's no AI upscaling, which is how they remastered it. Like there's none of that. It just looks like a modern picture, but nobody mentions it as far as I know.
so I'm blanking on the 3DO version. I can't remember what plays there during that version, but in the PC original, the clown photo appears there,
Yeah,
which is weird. Like, and then it cuts right to Jane. Like, it's like such a weird thing. I don't. I that is still the biggest mystery in this game to me.
yeah. This whole thing is a mystery, and I was hoping the definitive edition would kind of answer a lot of those questions, and we get some answers, mainly from Gene. And the behind the scenes photo or the behind the scenes stuff that's about the remaster of this, like how he did the AI upscaling for all of that, is really fascinating. I
Yeah,
really appreciated that stuff. Even though, in my opinion, why didn't they just use the stills from the PC version? Because I'm sure you thought when you boot up the PC version, like these look fine. Like they're not distorted like the 3DO, they're not pixelated like the 3DO ones are. Like they look nice and clean. Like you could have just took those, maybe did a little touch up and they would have been fine. You didn't have to do all this AI upscaling for it, at least in my opinion,
yeah.
you
I
know?
am assuming like the source code they didn't have for the PC version. They only had the 3DO version.
Yeah, because I think they even said they couldn't get like they tried to see if there was any like film reels or any of like the stills were saved, and they're kind of vague on that,
Yeah,
which
but
suggests to me
actually,
there might have been some, but probably not enough.
but then it actually that hits me though. They have those weird surrealist drawings from the PC version, so they had to have some access
Yeah.
to it.
Like I imagine Michael Anderson kept some of that stuff. Like probably, but again, they're like, it got lost to time or, it wasn't taken care of properly. So, we don't know. And it's a shame we don't get more like detail like that because most of the behind the scenes footage is like the CEO of Limited Run Games, or just random video game people saying, "Oh, this game is crazy. This is wacky that we did this." Blah 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 blah. Like most of the videos are the same fucking thing of them being like, "Oh, this is crazy that we did this. Isn't it crazy? Oh, the '90s were crazy." Like there's like
Yeah.
half the fucking videos are the same shit, and it's fucking stupid. Like we
Yeah,
don't need.
it's
I don't need John Linneman from Digital Foundry. Shout outs to Digital Foundry telling me about this stuff. Like I don't need that. Like
and
us going in, we know this stuff. Like
yeah.
I wanted more like of an in-depth Gene interview, because I felt the Gene interview was very surface level. There's
Hmm.
not like they don't go that deep. I mean, it could go as deep as, she remembers for sure, and she plugs, like, she basically just covers her whole life pretty quickly, like
Yeah.
covering her whole career, which is fine. I respect that. Yeah, I knew about her like soap company before this, but I would have liked more detail, but the commentaries do a good job of
Yeah,
providing some more detail.
the commentary is the best part of this like whole package.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
so
And
much interesting stuff.
yeah, and do enjoy the how they got the AI upscaling to work, and seeing the early tests of it and all that stuff. And it's a rare case of AI being done in a way that I like and it can appreciate.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's doing something that you can't really do otherwise. You know what I mean? And I
There's
used the AI upscaling the whole time, because I thought it did kind of clean up the image.
yeah.
But
Um
once you learn it's AI, it has that AI look to it. You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's hard. It's like that weird smoothness that it has. It's like borderline uncanny valley, even though according to this, they used a bunch of photos of Gene, a bunch of photos of Edward, so that the AI could learn how to, like, oh, that's them, and touch it up where it needed to be.
I
You
found
know?
that interesting because like he mentioned how like when they used the AI with the Gene, it made everyone look like Gene, and then when they used the
Yeah.
AI with Edward, it made everyone look like Edward.
Yeah. So he said it took him, didn't he say it took him like a year to remaster? I think it was all 800 stills
Yeah.
that way. So could you imagine a year of your life trying to figure this shit out? But I mean, props to that. I can't remember his name. I'm very sorry. But props to him for like making it work, because I do think it's a good job of that. And shout out to the one guy who did the programming. I think his name's George or Jorge or Georgie or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
even though I think the programming on this is kind of shoddy, with the whole border issue that I had, I don't know if you had this issue, but whenever I would watch a video, when it was done, it would either boot me to the main menu, or it would boot me to like the oh, select the images or video clip
Yeah.
thing.
Or
It would never
sometimes
keep me in that video menu.
yeah,
Never
or
stayed there.
the most annoying, it would bring you back to the extras menu, and then 3 seconds in, it would go back to the main menu. You'd have to go through everything again.
Yeah, like that is, to me, that's like a lack of quality control
Yeah.
there. Like that's probably a little bug that could be smoothed out, but it's just the fact that it's there, especially when this thing got delayed for fucking years. Because in the videos, they have the like, oh, here's like the 2021 announced trailer, here's the 2022
22.
trailer, here's the 2023 trailer, here's another 2023 trailer. Like, why it took them so long to do this, I have no idea. Like, it spent all this time in the oven and it comes out half baked. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the limited run games way. Hey, you
Yeah.
know,
Out of
a lot of people are starting to turn on limited run games, and I
yeah.
think they do a lot of things I don't like. The whole issue of, I've bought stuff from them. I don't know if you guys can see it, but behind me I have the No More Heroes 1 and 2 limited run deluxe sets, which are actually really good. I like them, but I've bought other sets from them. Like, I think I had Corpse Killer at one point. I know I had a copy of Turok that I bought from Best Buy, and it was always just like kind of iffy stuff. Like, my Corpse Killer came damaged. I know that's happened with other people as well. Their customer support isn't very good at all. It takes forever to get stuff. And then when you get stuff like this, it's just, really, really half baked,
I
The
mean,
best thing they do is they digitally publish all this stuff and put it out there, which I think is good. And they allowed a game like RZ, the Jewel of Faramore, to exist, which, for those
yes.
of you who don't know, that is the guy who did the Zelda CDI PC remakes, made a spiritual successor original game called RZ. And it
Oh,
is, I played it, I beat it. It is fantastic because it captures the spirit of the CDI like weirdness to a level that's kind of disturbing, but he made a good game out of it.
hmm.
And it is well worth your time. So, and Limited Run published that. It's their first like original game. So
Yeah.
props to them for doing that. And I like that they exist for this more kind of weird niche stuff. But there's a lot of business practice stuff that they do. And then I think this release is also an example of them being just kind of half-assing a lot of shit and just like raking in dough on a kind of a limited run effort.
I will
Anyway,
say, I bought this copy off of eBay. From what I found out, a lot of people who pre-ordered these still have yet to get their copy. So
that's so weird that like some of them shipped out super early. Some people have yet to even see them ship.
yeah,
It's a mess. It's probably for the best I didn't get a physical of this because there's probably not a chance I would have had it at this point, and I would have had to double dip. And which some people claim that with the physical taking so long, but the digital coming out quicker, they kind of force people to double dip potentially. I don't know if that's true. I don't want to claim that, but it wouldn't surprise me. A lot of companies have intentionally done that before. Nintendo.
so I will say like the behind the scenes stuff I liked for the most part. The interviews with the My Life in Gaming, no nothing against them. I do enjoy their content. Um, and those other people, they were kind of the least interesting to me because they were just like rehashing shit that I've already heard before.
Yeah, and there were so many videos from these people. Like they didn't need to be here like completely at all.
Like
And it's just
the girl that used to work with Metal Jesus Rocks, she was in a bunch of
yeah,
them.
yeah, she has that weird video game history preservation thing and there's some issues around that as well like about I mean the whole preserving video games thing is a rough topic and all that
Yeah,
stuff and I'm not saying these people aren't passionate about it but having them in an official product just seems really weird to me
yeah. I had nothing against any of them. Um, I'm sure they're all great people. I thought their contribution to this was very
except the CEO of Limited Run Games.
well. Yeah,
He he comes off as a shithead, doesn't
yeah,
he kind of comes
a
off as
little.
an asshole.
I love
And
his hat.
I hope he's
Just
watching this too. So then we get some hate mail.
maybe. I mean, I do give him the props for his tracking down the people and getting the rights for this, so this could happen.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I don't know. I just get weird vibes off of him.
hmm,
I don't know what it is.
I did appreciate the James Rolfe interview because it kind of made
That was
sense.
good. I actually that one made perfect sense. I like that one was there.
I love how it starts
Having
with like,
him kind of go like
what have
having
I
him be
done?
like he's like fuck man I can't believe I did this. I liked that was
Yeah,
great but like James Rolfe is kind of like he's become kind of like a cultural figure in
yeah.
the video game pantheon like
I like chill older James Rolfe too, where he's just like, fuck, what did I do?
yeah where he's always too busy
Yeah.
that yeah, I'm not getting all that Cinemasker BS anyways
Um.
the gene stuff was nice
hmm,
learning more about the actual development of this was nice there's that weird comedy skit where
Yeah.
they just like he like redoes like the dot file to be like oh that's how I ported it which is I mean sure I don't know why it's in here but whatever you know
Um.
and then yeah there's just a lot of weird stuff in here but one issue I have with this I discovered this today actually
Oh boy.
so now for the video I want to be sure everybody can see this okay let me pull it up if you can see probably not I have all the achievements right
Huh.
so I've done everything right now I hadn't turned this on in a couple days because I've been busy playing like a dragon and a little bit of Dead Rising and everything, right? So I hit A, right? Oh, we haven't talked about Plumb the Depths. We'll
Oh
talk
yeah.
about that.
We'll get to that.
We'll talk about that in a second. So I go to galleries because I'm like, oh, let me pull up a silly still for the background, right? Right. So I'll go to the images or not the fucking the images. Everything's locked again.
Huh.
It's all locked. Like it still has like my save data from when I'm playing the main game, but it's all locked again. Why the fuck is it locked? I already did all this. Did the game not save it? Is there a save glitch in here? Like, what the fuck? That's bullshit. Now, I didn't go into Plumb the Depths and be like, do I have to do this again? But why would I have to do that again? I already did it.
Yeah.
And the achievements are all tied to getting these unlockables, except for like a couple. They're all tied to this.
That's
So I
bizarre.
don't, that's, again, shoddy programming. But that's what happens when you have one guy programming everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I don't care. I don't care if you're John Carmack. You're gonna make a mistake here or there. It happens.
Yeah, I should probably check mine at some point.
Yeah,
Um,
that genuinely upset me.
yeah, because I guess going into that now, Plumb the Depths. Ugh.
Man, that could have been cool.
So the best way to describe Plumb the Depths is imagine that old Windows Maze screensaver. Um,
I didn't think about it until you said it, but that's so true.
it's essentially a first-person like Doom style 3D maze dungeon crawler thing. Uh, it's basically it's a three-color maze, and basically what you do is you collect plungers and you find all of your little extras. You can buy them with plumber bucks that you get from playing the game. Fun fact: you can buy you can buy pretty much everything with the money you get from one playthrough. Like I only did one
Yeah,
playthrough.
yeah, that's great. It's a glorified menu,
Um,
and yeah, you collect the plungers. You can pet the cat
yep.
like an actual cat, and then you'll find like Thresher just like
Yeah.
running around at you, and you use the plungers to throw at him. Handle first, by the way, that because it's literally the same little 3D image of the plunger that you
Yes.
find. They didn't bother to animate it the other way
No.
to throw at him.
So
And yeah, it's like a weirdly confusing maze.
so the
It'll
first
take you like maybe half an hour to do the whole thing.
yeah, and there's always gonna be that one fucking thing that you can't find. That's like
Yep.
I will say the first time I played Plumb the Depths, I didn't know Thresher was in there. And I pet the
Did he
cat, and
jump?
then I'll
Did he jump scare you?
he did when I finally figured out when I finally figured out what it was, because he caught me 3 times before I actually knew what it was. So I was like, because the first time I pet the cat, and then it cut to the game over screen where he's like, I forget what he said, something like,
Something
um,
stupid.
you should have been a better employee or something.
Yeah, something like
Um,
that. Which that has to be like unused dialogue from the game because he doesn't say that in the game.
yeah, it's definitely his voice though.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah. So the first time I pet the cat and got it, I was like, that was weird. What is? Don't pet the cat, I guess. And then it would randomly it happened 2 more times because he sneaks up on you.
Oh, but you hear the steps.
See, I thought at first those were just my footsteps, so I didn't really pick up on it.
That's fair. And yeah, the sneaking up, he definitely got me a couple times as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it just happened. I was like, is it like timed or something? And then one of the times I rounded a corner and he was just there and it jumped me. I was like, whoa, like what the fuck was that? Um,
It's
and then
it's a perverted old man. Run away.
and then I actually saw the still. They use the still of him holding the pen,
Yes.
and they just make it kind of like gyrate back and forth.
Basically, they mirror it so it looks like he's walking. At least that's what it looks like to me.
You know what it reminded me of? This is a really weird, obscure reference. It reminded me of that really shitty game that all the YouTubers were playing, Baldi's Basics.
Oh, Basic Baldi's Math or whatever.
Yeah, it reminded me
Yeah.
of how things move in that. Like it was like really
Yeah.
uncanny.
Yeah. Baldi's was like, that was like the bad Doki Doki or the bad like Five Nights at Freddy's. Like, I think it was trying more to be a Five Nights at Freddy's thing where it's like, oh, it's one thing, but it's something else or whatever. And it just, I didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Oh no,
people
it's
saw in that.
it was just a dumb like YouTuber streamer game.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
remember it. It was in that like original Five Nights at Freddy's explosion in the 2010s.
It's apparently a parody of Sonic's Schoolhouse, which is like a very uncanny educational game from like back in the day.
I mean, a little, but I didn't think it was that bad.
No, it's not scary. It's just like it's just uncanny looking.
Yeah, I still think that weird image in Sonic CD is creepier.
Oh, the weird Mario face ones.
Yeah, that's still
Yeah.
creepy as hell.
Um, Going back to Plumb the Depths though, it's literally like the most they tacked this on, and it had there was no reason for like that being how you unlock all the unlockables.
No. Like it would have been interesting if it was like a weird dungeon crawler that like oh, you have to like save Jean and save John or save John and Jane from Thresher and you could have multi levels or actually like put a little bit of effort into it. But I mean, it runs perfectly fine. I never had it crash on me or anything
It's honestly one
weird.
of the best running things in this game.
For real, like it's perfectly fine for what it is, but it could have been more, you know?
To me, like all the biggest like thing to me is the fact that it's so just generic looking. Like it's
Oh
legit
yeah.
just three different colors.
Yeah,
They
they didn't bother to add any like references or any cute little Easter eggs in there. Nothing.
Yeah, like it would have
Nothing.
been cool if like they used like stills from the game and tried to make like graphics based around those.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah, in
Like you
reality,
like find the random panda bear in the race car. He's hidden out there
yeah,
somewhere.
like one of the sections could have been like the racetrack, the other could have been like the parking lot, the other could have been the office or something.
Yeah, that would have been perfect. You know?
Yeah, unfortunately, they did not go that way. Um,
They did not.
you know, what would have been a more interesting villain if they had like Chicken Man running around in there or something.
There we go. I would have loved Chicken Man.
That's actually one of my favorite behind
So
the
does that mean
scenes.
so does that mean like or like have like Thresher and the narrator fight each other? So it's like Peter Griffin and the giant chicken.
Yeah, honestly, one of my favorite shots from the game is that one image of Michael Anderson in the car with I think the female narrator, and he's just wearing the chicken mask, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like what is that from?
That he's pimping. That's what he's doing right there.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, like also the
This
menu.
remaster was really upsetting.
It's annoying to me because it's like it's great that like this game is easy to experience now because I do think this is we'll get into it with okay must play stay away, but I do think this is a game that should be experienced.
Yeah, because one thing they say in the behind the scenes stuff that I completely agree. I forget who said it. They said, you know, if we're gonna preserve the good games, we also need to preserve the bad games. And I completely agree. I think every game deserves to be preserved. Though I think game preservation, at least from an official standpoint, is in a weird state. But I mean, we all know that if you search, you know, if you look around, you'll find just about every game you want. There are very few games that are lost to time. Like
Yeah.
not as many as people say, but I think when they say preservation, they mean in a more official capacity. That's like playable on like modern systems and everything with no not having to do any legal gray area stuff. And I completely agree. And seeing this come out at all is pretty amazing when you think about it. Because I think they even say like, oh, the craziest game the port would have been Night Trap, which I don't know if I'd agree with that, but I still like we still don't have Sewer Shark. That would be fucking crazy because I'm like that game sucks, but
Yeah.
I'd play it. I'd play. Well, we'd have to. I mean, it has a 3DO port, so we could talk about it. But
Yep.
you know, there's still some of those that haven't been ported yet. But this yeah is kind of near the top of the list as far as like the most out there re-release you can think of.
The one thing I disagreed with, though, out of all the comments they made in the behind the scenes, was they constantly refer to this game as the worst game ever. I don't agree with that in the
Eh,
slightest.
from a technical standpoint, maybe from like how if something qualifies as a game, like
True.
sure, but when it comes to like I don't know what the ultimate metric of a game is. Like, do you enjoy it? I guess you know.
That's the thing. Like to me, like worst game ever is something that like Balls 3D. I find worse than this
Oh
because
yeah,
I mean at least this.
we've played worse games on this program than
Oh
Plumbers
yeah.
Don't Wear
Oh
Ties.
no. When we get to must play, okay, stay away. My answer is probably going to be shocking to some people, but um honestly, like I this game to me is interesting to play. Like it's I mean it's not a good game. It's arguably borderline a game at all. But it's entertaining and it's kind of like it is kind of like the room in that way. You just kind of like to watch it because it's fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. You you see it because you're like, what the fuck is this? And you enjoy it
Like
for what it
James
is.
Rolfe.
Or maybe a more contemporary example, a Neil Breen film, if you know who Neil Breen is. This game feels closer to like a Neil Breen thing. Because if you ever watched any of Neil Breen stuff, it is completely fucking bonkers.
Yeah,
And it's kind of almost closer in spirit to this. But Neil Breen has his head firmly up his ass.
I do
And I
think
love it.
James Rolfe said it best though with his famous quote of "What the fuck is this game?"
Yeah. It's barely a game, but we've played games that are much more games that are way worse than
Oh
this.
yeah.
Like I think a potential episode idea would be to rank all the games that we've played, like put them in a list. And I have no idea where Plumbers would be in that list, because there are some games we've played that were like kind of boring or just kind of mediocre that I would probably put above this just because it's more of a game. But there are definitely games I would put below this for sure.
I mean, D alone was a technical marvel at the time it came out, but nowadays it's fucking miserable to play. And
Oh, D is
at least,
awful.
at least this is entertaining for what it's
Yeah,
worth.
yeah, D is fucking trash.
Um, so going into reception from the time, it's
Oh
interesting because
boy.
it's kind of hard to find true reception from when this actually came out because I don't think a lot of people played this when it came out.
There was, I think they it might have been the YouTube video on this when they were talking about like when the PC version came out. Like they had a screenshot of a review of the PC version at the time from some random game magazine. So it did get reviews at the time. And I don't know if 3DO magazine reviewed this. Probably not.
So
Or maybe they did.
so looking through, apparently All Game gave it 1 star. Um, PC Gamer actually did review it and gave it 3%.
That's probably the one I was thinking of, yeah, which 3% is tragic.
Yeah. Another similarly titled magazine, PC Format, rated it 4%.
Ooh.
EGM apparently rated it. Oh no, that was a retrospective review. Never mind.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. Those don't
okay.
count.
Yeah, there's not a lot of reviews from the time. Most of our One Up apparently gave it one of the worst video game box covers, which I guess I mean
The 3DO box cover isn't very good.
no, like my favorite part of it is the thing that was parodied on the back of here is all the little like text blurbs, and my favorite is the upside down. Get it?
Get it? Yeah. No, I don't get
Don't
it.
get it. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you actually look, for those of you who don't, like if you look at the Plumbers Don't Wear Ties cover, like the 3DO cover, it's not very good. Like there's nothing about it that's like genuinely enticing. And that one picture they have of Jane where it's like she's like doing this, like showing a little bit of her like your bra or whatever. It's like that photo never shows up anywhere
Oh,
in the
no.
game. So why is that one there? It's so
Yeah.
weird, man.
I still think it's funny that the limited run special edition cover, I feel like had more effort put into it than a lot of the stuff in the actual game.
Yeah, who did that? Who drew that
I
cover?
I don't know. I'm gonna actually have to look into that because I'm curious.
Yeah, because I do like that cover.
Yeah, honestly, that is the reason I bought this because I saw that cover and I'm like, that looks nice. I kind of want it in my collection.
So, yeah,
John looks like Phoenix Wright.
he does. Yeah, I love that, and the little chicken guy and everything. And
Yep.
it's crazy, man.
So
I wonder if they would do like an anime visual novel remake of this game.
the
That'd be
amount of
amazing.
people when I posted this onto the 3DO Reddit, the amount of people that thought they turned the game into an anime was actually kind of hilarious.
That would be amazing. Apparently, there's a book version of this. If you go on Limited Run Games, they got some like comedy writer to turn this into like a novel or like a little mini novella thing or whatever. And I considered buying it, but no, I couldn't do it. Not even with a tax refund coming.
Also, apparently, like one final thing before we get into must play, okay, stay away. Apparently, according to Janine and some of the people from Limited Run, there actually was a sequel apparently being thrown around back in the day.
Yeah. Which
But
I think that was all purely hypothetical. I highly doubt there was anything concrete. I think
yeah,
they were just it's that thing where people, I'm sure we've all, it's like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did that thing again? And it's just like, yeah, you think about it, but you're like, no. And there's a reason you don't ever do it again. Because
yeah.
that would have been genuinely bad.
So I guess now for must play, okay, stay away. Um, I'm gonna break the scale here. I'm gonna say go for it because I feel like you should. I feel like you should play this game now that there is a way to play it because
Oh yeah.
it is just a visual like fascination like in gaming.
I can say this. I think I can safely say this. It'll probably be the worst game we say is a must play.
Honestly,
Yeah, because
because
yeah, it is dog shit, but it's, you have to experience it. Like, you have to know what this is. It's an absolute must play. Like, I think it sells for like $20.
oh yeah,
I'm sure it'll go on sale at one point, and for like 10 or under, like, just go for it, man. Like, why
yeah,
not? You'll get like 2 hours of laughter out of it, and then you'll probably move on with your life, and
yeah.
they'll be good, you know. So
I mean,
I think it's definitely worth experiencing just for the legacy that it's created and this weird sort of lasting impact that it has had in this modern internet meme culture. You know, it has carved out a little piece of that. And that alone, I think, is worth giving it a shot.
the fact that it got a modern release on consoles to me is the most one of the probably the best parts of gaming that I love is the fact that something as stupid as this could get a release on a modern system.
Yeah, we can't get Mother 3 in the West, but we can damn sure get Plumbers Don't Wear Ties.
I will say though, don't buy the original. It's not worth it unless you are a crazy 3DO collector like me and had to own this game physically. Don't. It's 200. The disc alone is $200, and it's buy this.
I'm more of a 3DO collector than I ever thought I would be in my entire life, and I still don't think it's worth it.
No,
Especially now when you have this modern version. Just get that instead. You'll thank
yeah.
us later.
Honestly, like I never thought I'd know as so much about Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. Like when I first watched the AVGN episode, I was interested in it just because it was like, oh, he's talking about 3DO, that console I really like for some reason. What the hell is this game?
My whole experience with that was I was watching AVGN consistently at that time. You know, I was a big AVGN fan for many years. I think I started watching him in 2007 when he was on game trailers instead of YouTube, because YouTube was being really weird about that stuff back then. And I would, I anticipated it all the time, and I would rewatch those videos, even with like the bad buffering that we had. So watching like a 10-minute video was like a half-hour event just to get the thing to go.
Yep.
And then I remember when he did this one, like, he had mentioned the 3DO before, and I had, heard it like being thrown around as like this failed console that was like really expensive. People were kind of comparing it, I think, to the PS3, because like the PS3 came in at a really high price and didn't start out too strong. It eventually figured itself out, but the 3DO never did. Obviously, that's why the
Yeah.
show exists. And so, like, him getting a little bit more in depth with the 3DO, talking more about it, I got a curiosity to the system, especially with the stuff he was showing, especially, and I've always had an affinity for FMV games, anyways.
Mm.
And then yeah, the Plumbers Don't Wear Ties video was baffling. I think, but when he did that, I think he was back on YouTube full time at that point.
Yes, he was.
So yeah, so watching that when it was the new thing, I was like, what? This is fucking crazy, And then I didn't think about it that much. I would watch it here or there and get a good giggle out of it. And then I think it was in the last, like, I think 5 years, like, Plumbers became more of a talking point amongst like other people in the industry. You know what I mean? I think it was its turn to finally get a little shine.
Yeah.
But I won't be surprised if, like, say, a year from now we all go back to not remembering this game.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be one of those like things that you'll see occasionally at like a flea market or in like a retro game store, just sitting on a shelf, and people are like, "Oh yeah, that was a thing."
Yeah, yeah. If I ever find a physical of this for the Xbox, I will buy it.
Hmm.
Just to throw it on the shelf down there,
Oh yeah,
so it can sit next to The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk, fucking One Piece Odyssey. Hi, Alex. And fucking like Quantum Break. Where it deserves to sit.
yeah, yeah. Honestly, like this. Honestly, this was like probably one of the most when I started Redio, like before we rebooted it earlier last year, late last year. Like this was like I thought was going to be like the big like the pinnacle of the series, and like when we finally reached the end. But the way we've done it now, it just kind of was like it was inevitable we were going to cover this game. And
Yeah, yeah. When we started doing this, it was like, oh, we got to do that eventually. But I think we had said that we'll wait till the remaster comes out because then it'll be a little bit more timely to talk about it.
hmm,
So
and
it
honestly,
kind it kind of worked out.
I'm glad we did it now because like that was just the whole adventure of going through and learning all this shit was honestly some of the most interesting stuff I've like looked into in a long time. Like
Oh yeah.
this game is a rabbit hole that still isn't even complete yet. Like I'm hoping in the future we'll find out more.
Like learning about this game is kind of like learning about like a weird cult B movie. Like learning about this game is kind of a similar way to learning about like old random B movies. Like the
It's like
behind the
that
scenes of like movies and stuff, which is
yeah.
always kind of fascinating.
It's like that 90s Fantastic Four movie that never got released. Like that apparently
Yeah,
has some really interesting backstory to it.
yeah, or like that Nick Cage Superman thing that didn't happen, which is a shame because that would have been awesome.
Or the Army Hammer Justice League with Army Hammer as Batman. Like just
Yeah, yeah.
weird stuff.
Yeah, like basically between Batman and Robin in '97 and Batman Begins in 2005, there was a lot of failed attempts to for DC movies, which are
Yes.
all very interesting to hear about. You know,
But yeah, so we kept it under 2 hours. So good for us.
well, we did
Um,
it. We finally got this albatross off our neck.
yep.
Feels good. Feels good, doesn't it?
What's like the next big like hot? Oh yeah, we should probably figure out what our next game's gonna be. But I'm
Go ahead.
I was gonna say like what's the next big like mega like well known game? Like I'm thinking of like some of the ones that like people always bring up. Like we'll get to Gex eventually. That's farther down the line.
Oh, you don't want to do Gex next?
I mean, if you want, I figured we'd wait a bit for like a significant thing. But then again,
Well,
also
Well, I was thinking like the limited run thing. We don't know anything about it. We don't know
true,
when the hell it's going to come out, and it's going to be the trilogy. So we could always revisit it to talk about the sequels.
true. I mean, we could do Gex next. That figure that would be a fun one.
An actual game where I actually do stuff.
One of like the four platformers on the 3DO, and I that might be generous, honestly. Um, uh,
I'm looking at my stuff up there. You don't have Escape from Monster Manor yet.
I don't yet.
No.
I got to get my tax money back first.
Um, I'm thinking, do you want to do Gex or do you want to do Wing Commander?
Just based upon how much time it would take, I'd prefer Gex because Gex might be easier.
Yeah,
Wing Commander, I want to actually like take some time and actually play.
that's fair. So yeah, you fuck it. Let's do Gex.
Okay.
I think it's time. We've done one big one. Let's do the other big one.
Yeah. I mean, the only other mega, like major, like well known 3DO game, just because of the company behind it, is probably Way of the Warrior. But that's going to be a big crossover. I have a feeling because I already know a number of people that want to join us for that.
Yeah, we'll save that. We'll make that a collab episode
Yeah. So
because I'm not going to have much to say outside of this game sucks.
yeah, I mean
Spoilers.
that's another one that I feel like the behind the scenes are more interesting than the actual game itself.
Yeah, but I feel like next time we should talk about a game proper.
Yeah. So yeah, let's do Gex. But do you want to
Yeah,
do
let's do
Gex
it.
next week, or do you want to do like say like a filler in between and then the following week?
I want to give it 2 weeks
Okay.
because I don't know how long it's going to take me to beat Gex, and I want to give myself enough time to play through it.
Okay. Um. So yeah, next week then we should probably cover something.
Do you want to do you want to cover that Jurassic Park game
Jurassic Park Interactive?
as like a filler? Because that's a filler episode game.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to emulate it because I don't own it, but
Oh, you
there's not.
don't? I do.
It's been on my list. I want to
I
cover it at
I
some point.
oh boy. Oh, I have this sucker. To be fair, well, I don't want to say too much, but if you want.
Let me check the lovely eBay to see what it's going for right now.
I didn't pay that much for it.
Jurassic Park Interactive 3DO. Oh, the jewel case is $18.
Well, there you go.
Oh, the long box.
I
No, that one's
paid I paid like $30 for my long box.
30. Yeah, there's a 62. No, thank you.
Ooh.
Um, so there's this one that doesn't have the manual and it looks kind of shitty, but that's fine as long as the game works.
I don't think you're missing much if you don't get the long box. In fact, let
True.
me open mine up and I'll show you. Let's see. You open it and you get the disc and the manual just popped out. So that's all you
Gotcha.
get. Unless
Um,
this copy didn't have the extra stuff, but it doesn't look like there's room for other stuff.
yeah. So this one's like $30. I might jump on this one.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, let's either do I get that one for 30? Do I go for the 35? That's nice in better condition, but still doesn't have the manual.
Mm.
So actually, at that point, I might as well go for the cheaper one.
Yeah, you honestly getting a jewel case with the manual would probably be good enough.
Yeah, I'll go for this one. That's cheaper. I mean, even if it doesn't play great, I can emulate it. I just like to have the long box.
I get that.
Yeah. So next week we'll talk about Jurassic Park Interactive, and then the following week we'll talk about Gex.
Yes, all animals, all the time.
Looking for the mystery man.
Who could it be now?
But yeah, so once again, guys, thank you for joining us on the 3DO Experience. 3DO Experience can be found on all the major podcasting platforms, and we are now on YouTube with occasional, well, actually, along with video versions, not occasional for this show. And yeah, if you'd like, you can find all of our links at linktree/the Barber Who Games, and you can join the GNC Podcast Network Discord server, talk all things gaming, collecting, 3DO Experience, Geek Addicts, talk gaming, anime, any sorts of nonsense over there. And with that, everybody, we will see you all later.
Bye-bye.